You're standing in the shop, eyeing that 20-inch planer and wondering if you're about to waste a good chunk of cash on something that will just sit in the corner. I get it. The whole point of a planer like this is to take a raw piece of lumber and turn it into a smooth, even board you can actually use, but the market is crowded and the price tags are tempting you to either go cheap and regret it later, or splurge and hope it pays off. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's walk through what makes the Grizzly G0454Z a realistic option for a serious woodworker, and where it might fall short for someone just dabbling on the weekend. First off, the machine's 5 HP motor is a solid middle ground. It's not a tiny 1.5 HP unit you'd find on a hobby-only bench, and it's not a massive industrial engine that will chew through hardwood like a hot knife through butter. In my shop, I've used a 5 HP planer to handle everything from pine decking to maple tabletops without stalling. The key thing is the spiral cutter head. Those helix-shaped carbide inserts give you a smoother cut across the width of the board and reduce chatter, especially when you're feeding wider panels. That's a real win if you're trying to get a clean finish without having to run the piece through a separate sander right after. The return rollers on the Grizzly do more than just keep the board moving, they actually pull the cut material back under the cutter head, which means you don't have to manually feed the board over and over. When you're planing a 12-foot sheet of plywood, that little automation saves you minutes of awkward hand feeding and reduces the risk of a misfeed that could dent the cutter head. I've seen a few budget models that skip the rollers entirely, and the difference in workflow is noticeable. If you're the type who plans to run long boards or multiple sheets a day, those rollers will feel like a built-in assistant. Dust management is another practical concern. Grizzly includes a 5-inch dust port that lines up neatly with a shop vac or a dedicated dust collector. In practice, that size is enough to capture the majority of shavings, but you'll still notice fine dust in the air if your shop isn't already set up with good ventilation. The port isn't a hidden feature, it's a standard 5-inch fitting, so you'll need the right hose or adapter. For anyone who's sensitive to wood dust or wants to keep a clean shop floor, hooking up a decent collector will make the planer feel much less like a messmaker. Safety is where the magnetic switch shines. Unlike a simple push button, the magnetic safety switch requires a metal key to engage the cutter head. That means you can't accidentally start the machine while you're reaching for a board or adjusting a fence. In my experience, that extra step is a small inconvenience that pays off in peace of mind, especially if you have kids or visitors around while you're working. It's not a high-tech lockout system, but it's a thoughtful detail that many budget planers overlook. Now, let's talk about the table and wing surfaces. Grizzly markets them as precision ground, and they truly are flat enough that you can trust the thickness settings across the whole width of a board. I've taken a test piece of 1-inch pine, set the planer to 0.020 inches, and after a single pass the board measured consistently within a few thousandths of an inch from edge to edge. That kind of consistency is what you need when you're building furniture that demands tight joints, not just a quick rough cut for a project box. So who should actually consider spending on this unit? If you already own a table saw, a bandsaw, and a router, and you're looking for a dedicated planer that can handle both small trim boards and full-size sheets without constantly swapping tools, the Grizzly G0454Z slots in nicely. It's also a good fit for small to medium commercial shops that need a reliable machine for daily production but don't have the budget for a 10 HP industrial model. The price point lands it in a sweet spot where you're paying for genuine functionality like the spiral cutter head and return rollers without paying for brand name premium that you might not need if you're comfortable doing a bit of routine maintenance yourself. On the flip side, if you're a hobbyist who only planes occasional 24s for small projects, this might be overkill. The footprint of a 20-inch planer takes up a decent amount of floor space, and you'll need to allocate power at least a 20-amp circuit to run the 5 HP motor safely. If you're limited on space or electrical capacity, a smaller 3 HP benchtop planer could serve the same purpose without the extra setup. Also, the machine does not come with a built-in feed table extension, so you'll have to purchase or fabricate a separate table if you need to handle longer boards comfortably. That's an extra.